சுகமானந்தவமலமதிதன்னால் அகமிதுதான் எங்கள் வென்றாய்ந்தே அகவுருவை தங்கறிந்து முன்னே நதி போலும் ஓயுமே உங்கள் அருணாச்சலனேயோ.
In this video, I'm going to be talking about verse 3 of Arunachala Pancharatnam. As I explained when talking about the first verse, Bhagavan originally composed the first verse spontaneously without any external prompting. Later, when that was more or less the first verse that Bhagavan had composed in Sanskrit. So later, when that was brought to the attention of Kavyaganta, he asked Bhagavan to compose another verse in the same meter. So Bhagavan composed the second verse. Then Kavyaganta thought it would be a good idea to have 5 verses. And since the first 2 verses dealt with the subject of bhakti, he suggested that the third verse should be about the path of jnana, the fourth verse about the path of yoga, and the fifth verse about the path of karma. According to Bhagavan, the yoga marga is useful only to the extent to which the mind that is quietened by breath control or by any other yogic technique is then turned inwards. So in fact, the fourth verse, though he does touch a little bit about yoga there, about curbing the mind by curbing the breath, the main topic of the fourth verse, like the third verse, is turning the mind within. But he uses the term unne dhyanitu, meditating on you. And as he said in the second verse, Arunachala is that which is always shining in our heart as I, always dancing in our heart as I. So when he said meditating on you, he means meditate, and he also uses the word within, going within and meditating on you. So the third and fourth verses are both about the path of vichara, essentially. And the fifth verse, when he talked about the path of karma, according to Bhagavan, there's no the path of karma is not a separate path. It is a part of the path of bhakti. So you can't have nishkarmiya karma without bhakti. That he makes very clear in Upadeshundya from verses 3 to 7. In verse 3, he doesn't merely talk about nishkarmiya karma. He says kartanukakam nishkarmiya karmam. That is, or in Sanskrit, Ishvara pitum nechya kritum. That is action that is done without desire, and in Sanskrit it's offered for God, in Tamil done for God. In the Malayalam version he wrote Ishvara pritiyanai, that means done for the love of God. Pritiyanai means for the love. So the implication there in the third verse of Upadeshundya is that we cannot do nishkarmiya karma without bhakti. So nishkarmiya karma is just an accessory to the path of bhakti, and likewise yoga is not an essential but an optional accessory to a path of jnana. Yoga can only lead to a useful conclusion if the mind that is quietened by breath control is turned within. But I'm jumping ahead. I'm talking now about the fourth and fifth verse. Now in this third verse, this is pure jnana marga Bhagavan is talking about here. That is, in the previous verse, he said that Arunachala is that which is shining in the heart as I. And in the first verse, he prayed to Arunachala to shine as the sun, to make his his budding heart blossom fully. So how to make the budding heart blossom fully? Only by turning it within. So that is the subject of this third verse. So this is the center verse in these 5, Pancharatnam means the 5 gems. So among these 5 gems, this is the central gem. And this is the most important gem because Bhagavan is teaching us what was the purpose of Bhagavan's teachings is only to turn our mind within to know ourselves. That is though he touches upon that in the earlier verses, this in earlier and later verses, this is the essence of it. The central point is turning our mind within. So it's significant that this is the central verse in the work. What he says in the original Sanskrit version of this verse is, Ahamiti kuta ayati cham vishyanta pravishtaya tyamaladya avagamya swam rupam samyaccharanachala tve nadi babdo. What that means is, ahamiti kuta. Kutas means from where. So ahamiti kuta, from where as I. Ayati, coming. From where is it coming as I? Chamvish, ahamiti kuta ayati. Oh, iti. Okay, ambishya means seeking, searching, or investigating. Iti means it's just a quotative particle showing that everything that goes before that is not exactly. It's not exactly meant to be a quotation, but it's what investigating what investigating from where does it rise as I. So from where from where does it here refers to ego. So from where does ego arise as I? Investigating from where ego arises as I. Anta pravishtaya. Anta means within. Pravishtaya means entering. So entering within. So by investigating, the implication is there's no by there. It's just a participle, an adverbial part, or yes, a present participle or adverbial participle. So investigating from where it rises as I, implication, and thereby entering within. So how do we? What is the instrument by which we investigate it? Ati amala diya. That means by an extremely pure or immaculate mind. Mala means an impurity. Amala means devoid of impurity, so immaculate, pure, perfectly pure. So by an extremely immaculate mind, investigating from where one has risen as I, and thereby entering within and coming to. And then he says, avagamya swam rupam. Avagamya means coming to know. Swam rupam means one's own form. That's one's own real nature, one's own swarupa. It implies coming to know one's own real nature. What happens? Samyati arunachala. Samyati means to cease, subside, rest, be calm, or attain peace. So one will come to rest. One will cease. Tvai, in you, arunachala. Samyati, one will cease. Arunachala tvai, in you, arunachala. And then he gives an analogy, the last three words. Nadi iva abdo. Nadi means river, iva means like, abdo means in the ocean. So like a river in the ocean, one will cease in you. How will we cease in arunachala? The way to cease in arunachala is by an extremely immaculate mind, investigating from where one has risen as I, and thereby entering within, and coming to know one's own form. One will thereby cease to. One will cease, subside, or become quiescent in you, arunachala, like a river in the ocean. So just as when a river merges in the ocean, it becomes one with the ocean. When we turn our attention back within to know who am I, to know from where we have risen as I, from where we have risen as ego, we will thereby merge in arunachala, because arunachala is the heart, that which is shining or ever shining in our heart as I, that is as the pure I, as our real nature. So when we turn within to know from where I has risen, from where does I arise? From where do we rise as ego? Obviously only from ourself. Because as Bhagavan says in verse 26 of Uludunaptu, Ahandayundayin anatumundahum, Ahandayin drel indruanatum. If ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. If ego doesn't exist, everything doesn't exist. So everything there means everything other than our real nature, other than the pure awareness that we actually are. So all phenomena come into existence only when we rise as ego. And when we don't rise as ego, no phenomena exists. So what remains when we don't rise as ego is only the pure awareness that we actually are. So from where does ego rise? Only from that pure awareness, which is our real nature, which is what we actually are. We can see this from our own experience. In sleep, what remains in sleep? In sleep, there's no ego, no phenomena, there's nothing. There's just a state of pure awareness. That is what we actually are. What is present in all the three states is that fundamental awareness I am. In waking state, we're aware of ourselves as I am. In dream, we're aware of ourselves as I am. In sleep, we're aware of ourselves as I am. The difference is, in waking and dream, we are not aware of ourselves only as I am. We're aware of ourselves as I am this body. Whether this body or some other body in another dream, we're always aware of ourselves as I am this body in waking and dream. So we're not aware of the pure I am, or we are aware of the pure I am. We're not aware of it in its pure state. In sleep, we're not aware of ourselves as I am. We're aware of ourselves as I am this body. We're aware of ourselves just as I am. So that fundamental awareness I am, that is the reality. That is what Bhagavan refers to when he says Arunachala is shining, in the previous verse, when he said Arunachala is dancing in our heart as I. So that is our real nature. That is the source from which we have risen as ego. So when he talks here about investigating from where one has risen, that means we are investigating ourself, our real nature, which is the source from which we've risen as ego. And when we investigate our real nature and thereby know our real nature, avagamya swamrupam, thereby come to know our real nature, we will merge in that like a river in the ocean. And in the Tamil version of the verse, he says very much the same, but obviously in different words. What he says in Tamil is, Ahamukama anda amalamati tannal, ahamidutan engu erum endru ainde, ahavuruve, nangarindu munnir nadipolum oyume, ungan arunachala neo. What that means is, ahamukama, ahamukam, in Tamil, the word aham, there's a pure Tamil word, aham, which means interior, inside, heart, home. That's the Tamil word aham. In Sanskrit, aham is a pronoun meaning I, the first person nominative singular pronoun, aham. So in Tamil, aham has a double meaning. It can both mean I, and it can also mean heart or within. But since I is the heart, actually the meaning is the same, but we can interpret it from these two perspectives. So ahamukam means facing. It can either mean, if you take it in the Tamil sense, facing within or facing towards the heart. In the Sanskrit sense, ahamukam means facing towards I. Both meaning the same. So ahamukam ma. Means which is completely. It implies it's a verb, but it implies that completeness. So ahamukama, under means that. Amalamati. The amalamati means the pure mind or pure intellect, the mind that is in which the strength of the Vishaya vasanas has been reduced to a considerable extent. Because so long as we have strong Vishaya vasanas, our attention is always inclined to go outwards. That, to the extent that we reduce the strength of our Vishaya vasanas, we will gain the love, the vairagya to avoid being drawn outwards by our vasanas, and the love or bhakti to turn within. So to the extent the mind is, the Vishaya Vasanas are purified, to that extent does the mind become pure. To the extent that the Vishaya Vasanas are reduced in strength, the mind becomes pure. Because the impurities in the mind, the mala, is nothing but the Vishaya Vasanas. So when he talks about the amala mati, he means the mind which is extremely pure, the mind in which the strength of the Vishaya Vasanas has been reduced to a considerable extent. So with that mind which is pure, and using that purified mind to turn within, to be ahamukam to be completely ahamukam, inward facing or selfward facing or self-attentive. Ahamukam essentially, literally it means facing I or facing within or facing the heart. That implies being self-attentive. So with that pure mind being completely self-attentive, tan is a form of the pronoun tan, which means oneself. But here it's just used as a case carrier. That is, the al means by. It's the instrumental case ending. So instead of saying matial, he said mati tanal. That is to fill up the line in poetry. He's used tan as a case carrier, but essentially it has no meaning. Mati tanal means the same as matial, by the mind, by the pure mind, which is completely turned within. How is it completely turned within? Aham idu tan engu erum endru einde. The mind is turned within, investigating. Einde means investigating. Endru, in this way, aham idu tan engu. That is from where this aham idu means I this. Though I is there, so this idu is a pronoun, it implies this, the I. So the simple translation is to take it, instead of interpreting it as a pronoun, we can turn it into a determiner in English and say this I, though literally it means I this. So investigating where this I rises, where this thing called I rises. We can also take it in that way. Idu tan, where this itself rises. So where does this ego itself arise? Investigating that. As I explained earlier, from where does ego arise? It arises only from our real nature. It arises only from pure awareness. So investigating where the ego rises means turning our attention within to know ourselves. So with the mind, which is with the extremely pure mind that is turned within, investigating from where this I rises, aho uruve nangu arindu, knowing well, knowing clearly, aho uruve, the form of I, that's the real nature of I, munni nadi polum, like a river in the ocean, oyum, merging like a river in the ocean. Like a river in the ocean, merging unkan in you, Arunachala, Arunachala, or means no. So the whole verse means, by that immaculate mind, which is completely ahamukam, inward facing or selfward facing or self-attentive, investigating where this I itself rises, and thereby clearly knowing, thereby is not there but it's implied, thereby clearly knowing, nangu means knowing well, but that implies clearly knowing the form or real nature. Uruve literally means form, but it implies real nature of I. One will thereby cease to exist in you like a river in the ocean. So when we turn our attention within to investigate the source from which we have risen, we will know our real nature, and thereby, like a river merging in the ocean, we will merge in Arunachala. So Bhagavan, in the form of a praise of Arunachala, Bhagavan has very, very clearly explained the practice of self-investigation here. That is, in order to investigate ourselves effectively, the mind needs to be extremely pure. But that doesn't mean that we have to wait till the mind is extremely pure to begin investigating ourselves, because in order to be able to investigate ourselves successfully, we need to purify the mind. And the most effective means to purify the mind is to try to turn within. Every time we try to turn within, we are weakening our Vishaya Vasanas. So by persistent efforts to turn within and remain ahamukam, remain facing ourself alone, every attempt we make and every time we hold on to that self-attentiveness, we are thereby weakening our Vishaya Vasanas. So we cannot succeed in this path without an Amalamati. But we don't need an Amalamati to begin. Obviously, we need to begin from where we are. If our mind is now impure, as is the case for most of us, we have to start with this impure mind. So long as the mind is impure, turning within will be a struggle, because the strength of our Vishaya Vasanas will always be pulling us outwards. But that doesn't matter. So long as we keep on trying to turn within, little by little, even if we seem to be failing every time, doesn't matter. Keep on trying, because every time we try, we are showing our willingness to resist the pull of the Vishaya Vasanas, to avoid being swept away by our Vishaya Vasanas, to avoid wandering away from ourselves under the sway of our vasanas. So we are trying to turn our attention within more and more and more. The more we try to turn it within, the more the Vishaya Vasanas will be weakened, and the weakening of our Vishaya Vasanas means our mind is being purified. And when our mind is sufficiently purified, we will be able to use that purified mind to be completely ahamukam, ahamukama, completely ahamukam. The mind which is completely, the pure mind which is completely ahamukam, we will be able to make it completely ahamukam, and thereby we will effectively investigate the source from which we've arisen and know. Effectively investigating means investigating and knowing. So he says there, knowing Nangu Arindu, knowing well, knowing clearly the true nature of I, of aham, of the heart, of what we actually are. So both the Sanskrit and the Tamil, the meaning is essentially the same in both cases. In Sanskrit, there are one or two words which are not there in Tamil. For instance, he says Ati Amala. Ati means extremely pure mind. In Tamil, he uses this beautiful term, which he uses often in Tamil, ahamukam. This is such a mukam is a Sanskrit word meaning face. So if you're bahya mukam, you're facing outwards. Bahya means outward. If you're antamukam, you're facing inwards. But so antamukam and ahamukam essentially mean the same, but the ahamukam puts more stress on what it actually means to be facing inwards. Facing inwards means facing eyewards. According to Bhagavan, everything other than ourself, everything other than ourself is external. So what is within? Only I am within. So when he talks about turning the mind within, he doesn't. Some people take the world is outside. If we take the body as the limit, then the world is outside. All the thoughts and feelings and everything seems to be inside the body. But that is not the sense in which Bhagavan uses the term inside and outside in this context. What he means by outside is everything other than ourselves, everything that is extraneous to ourselves, everything that appears and disappears is outside ourselves. What is inside is only that pure awareness I. So when he talks about ahamukam, facing within, he means facing only towards I. So this is a very beautiful word in Tamil that Bhagavan often uses. He uses it in Nana in one place. In Nana he uses it as a synonym for antamukam, for facing within. And I think in other places, if I remember correctly, Oh, no. I was thinking... No, there are other places where Bhagavan used it, but I can't remember. I was thinking in the Deepa Darshana Tattvam, when Bhagavan sang about the Deepa Darshana, I thought he had used it there, but he doesn't. There he says, aha no kal. No also means looking at or face, looking at. So looking at, aha no kal means looking at I, or being self-attentive. It's a slightly different word, but it has the same implication. So this is the essence of Bhagavan's teachings. What Bhagavan's teachings are all about is about turning our attention within. Why? Turning our attention within to know I. Why? Because Arunachala is that which is shining as I. Arunachala means our real nature is that which is always shining within us as I. That alone, that is the heart. That is what we need to know. So that is what Bhagavan, the core of Bhagavan's teaching, the focal point of Bhagavan's teaching. Whatever teachings Bhagavan has given us about the world being a dream, and about even about the karma theory, whatever Bhagavan has taught us, it's all in connection with this turning our mind within to know ourselves. That is our ultimate aim. How to go beyond karma by turning our attention within. So long as our mind is going outwards, we're involved in action, in karma. So whatever Bhagavan has taught us is all connected ultimately with this core point, which is turning our attention within. Even what he describes as the path of self-surrender, though sometimes he talked of the path of self-surrender as if it were an alternative to the path of self-investigation, he actually makes clear in so many places, such as in the first sentence of the 13th paragraph of Nana, but we cannot surrender ourselves completely without turning our attention within. But turning our attention within so key, what he says in that first 13th sentence, Anma Chintane Tavira, Vera Chintane Kalamba Vataku, Satram Idam Kodama, without giving the slightest room to the rising of any thought other than Atma Chintana, that means thought of oneself. That implies being so keenly self-attentive, but we give no room to the rising of any other thoughts, because no thought can rise without our attending to it. If we're attending only to ourselves, no other thought, there's no scope for any other thought to arise. So we need to be so keenly self-attentive, and if we are so keenly self-attentive, that is giving ourselves to God. That is surrender to God, Bhagavan says. So all of Bhagavan's teachings are centered around this, that the word, this beautiful term, ahamukam, that encapsulates Bhagavan's teachings, facing within. Now our attention is facing outwards. We need to change our manapoku, the direction of our mind. Our mind is going outwards. We need to change it from bahimukam to antamukam, from outward facing to inward facing, to selfward facing. So this is the essence of Bhagavan's teachings. If we turn our attention within keenly enough, we will thereby know our real nature, and thus we will merge in that. And our real nature is that which Bhagavan refers to as Arunachala. So like an ocean, like a river merging in the ocean, when we know our real nature, we will merge and become one with Arunachala, because Arunachala is our real nature. And what is our real nature? Our real nature is pure awareness. Who can know pure awareness? Only pure awareness can know pure awareness. So by knowing our real nature, we cease to be ego and become pure awareness, which is what we always actually are.